I remember a woman named Eleanor sitting across from me in my clinic. She was 62 years old, immaculately dressed in a tailored cream blouse, her silver hair pulled back in a way that suggested elegance, but also a kind of rigid control. She looked at me with eyes that were red-rimmed and exhausted, eyes that hadn't seen a full night of deep sleep in perhaps a decade. She told me, if I stop worrying, even for a minute, I feel like the ceiling is going to collapse on my family. I feel like I am the only thing holding the sky up. She believed that her anxiety was the glue holding her marriage, her adult children's lives, and her financial future together. This is a sentiment I have heard from thousands of women in the second half of life. There is a silent, pervasive belief that worry is a form of love, and that letting go of that worry is an act of negligence. But today we are going to explore a profound psychological truth, famously articulated by Carl Jung, that turns this belief on its head. When you stop worrying, everything starts to go well. This isn't just a nice spiritual quote to put on a refrigerator magnet. It is a clinical reality. It is a mechanism of how the human psyche interacts with the world. In my years of clinical practice, specializing in female psychology and relationship dynamics, particularly for women over 50, I have seen that chronic worry is not a personality quirk. It is a hidden danger. It is a trap that drains your vitality, repels the people you love most, and actually invites the very chaos you are trying to prevent. Today, we are going to deconstruct why intelligent, capable women fall into the trap of the sentinel, the woman who is always watching for danger, and how this behavior threatens your health, your autonomy, and your deepest relationships. Before we go deeper into these hidden patterns, I want to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This isn't for vanity metrics. It is because the algorithms usually push content that feeds your anxiety. By subscribing, you are curating a feed that prioritizes wisdom, psychological depth, and emotional freedom. It is a small act of self-care. And please, I urge you to stay with me until the very end of this video. In the final few minutes, I am going to share a specific set of self-diagnostic questions, a litmus test, that will reveal if you have unknowingly crossed the line from caring into a destructive psychological state that Jung warned us about. These questions are often the turning point for my clients, so you do not want to miss them. Now, let's look at the first major danger of this dynamic, which I call the illusion of the sentinel. Many women in their 50s and 60s have spent decades being the emotional managers of their families. You may have been the one who remembered dentist appointments, who sensed when a child was sick before they had a fever, who anticipated your husband's bad moods. Over 30 or 40 years, this creates a neural pathway in your brain that says, "My vigilance prevents disaster." The danger here is that as you age and your children become adults, or your relationship dynamics shift, this vigilance stops being helpful and starts being suffocating. You become the sentinel standing guard over a castle that no longer needs guarding. I worked with a client named Margaret. She was convinced that if she didn't text her 40-year-old son every morning to check on his commute, something terrible would happen. If her husband coughed, she immediately spiraled into researching lung diseases. She lived in a state of high-functioning terror. The psychological reality is that this worry does not change the outcome. Margaret's texting did not make her son's car safer. Her anxiety did not clear her husband's lungs. What it did was spike her cortisol levels, creating systemic inflammation in her own body, and it created a wall of tension between her and her family. Her son stopped calling because he didn't want to manage her anxiety. Her husband withdrew because he felt constantly scrutinized, not cared for. Jung would argue that by projecting this fear outward, Margaret was creating a reality of distance and illness. She was manifesting the isolation she feared. The concrete rule here is this: you cannot worry a specific outcome into existence, nor can you worry a disaster out of existence. Your anxiety is not a shield, it is a wall that separates you from the peace of the present moment. The second pattern is even more subtle and deeply ingrained in female psychology, and we call it the martyrdom of care. This is the unconscious belief that if I am not worried, it means I do not love you. This is particularly potent for women who have been mothers or caretakers. Society has conditioned you to believe that the depth of your love is measured by the depth of your suffering or concern. If you are relaxed while your daughter is going through a divorce, you might feel guilty, as if you are being cold. However, clinical psychology and Jungian analysis tell us that this anxious love is actually a burden to the receiver. When you look at your partner or your children with eyes filled with worry, you are essentially telling them, I do not trust your capacity to handle your life. You are mirroring back to them that they are fragile and incompetent. This destroys their confidence, and it erodes the romantic or familial bond. I recall a client, Sarah, 58, who was dating a wonderful man named David. David was adventurous, he liked to travel and take small risks. Sarah, driven by the martyrdom of care, would constantly fret over his itinerary, his health insurance, his diet. She thought she was loving him. David eventually sat her down and said, Sarah, when you worry about me constantly, I feel like you are my mother, not my lover. It kills my desire for you. It was a harsh truth, but a necessary one. True love is a vote of confidence. It is standing beside someone, witnessing their journey, without trying to steer the ship out of fear. The concrete rule for this danger is love allows others the dignity of their own risks. Your trust is a far more powerful offering of love than your worry ever could be. The third danger is what we call the shadow of irrelevance. This is a very difficult topic that few people discuss openly. As women transition into their later years, post-menopause, perhaps post-retirement, or after the nest empties, there is a deep existential fear of no longer being needed. If you are not fixing problems, if you are not worrying about everyone, who are you? What is your function? Carl Jung spoke extensively about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we do not want to look at. For many older women, the shadow is the fear of invisibility, so the worry becomes a way to remain relevant. If you create a crisis or if you amplify a problem, you are needed to solve it. This is rarely conscious, it is a subconscious drive. You might find yourself meddling in a dispute between your siblings or obsessing over a minor financial issue just to feel the rush of handling business. I worked with a woman named Linda who was a retired corporate executive. She was brilliant, but she couldn't switch off. She began treating her homeowners association like a Fortune 500 company, worrying incessantly about the landscaping contracts and the bylaws. She was driving her neighbors and herself crazy. She was trying to fill the void of her identity with worry. The solution for Linda wasn't to fix the landscaping, it was to face the silence and rediscover who Linda was when she wasn't the boss or the fixer. This is where the magic of Jung's quote comes in. When Linda finally stopped worrying, when she resigned from the board and started painting, something she hadn't done in 40 years, her energy shifted. She became lighter. People started drawn to her again, not because she was useful, but because she was joyful. Everything started to go well because she stopped forcing the river to flow. The concrete rule here is your value in this season of life is found in your presence, your wisdom, and your joy, not in your utility or your ability to manage crises. The fourth danger is the physiological cost, which I call the body keeps the score. We cannot talk about psychology without talking about biology. Chronic worry is a state of sympathetic nervous system arousal. You are stuck in fight or flight. For a woman in her 20s, the body can bounce back from this. For a woman in her 50s, 60s, or 70s, the cost is immediate and severe. When you worry, you are bathing your organs in cortisol. This disrupts your sleep architecture, leading to insomnia, which in turn accelerates cognitive decline. It spikes your blood pressure. It suppresses your immune system. But more than that, it creates a brittle energy. Have you ever hugged someone who feels stiff, vibrating with tension? It is not pleasant. I want to tell you about a case that broke my heart, though it had a redemptive ending. Patricia, 65, came to me after a minor heart attack. Her cardiologist told her, "Patricia, your heart is fine mechanically, but your stress is killing you." She was worrying about her legacy, her will, her grandchildren's education, her husband's cholesterol. She was literally worrying herself to death. We had to do radical work to get her to understand that her physical survival depended on her ability to surrender control. We implemented a practice of containment. She was allowed to worry for 15 minutes a day, and the rest of the time, she had to practice active trust. As her anxiety lowered, her blood pressure dropped, her skin looked better, and her husband told her, "I feel like I have my wife back." The concrete rule is, your body is the vessel of your life, not a machine to be driven into the ground by your mind. You cannot protect your family if you destroy yourself in the process. Now, I want to address a specific nuance for those of you navigating love and romance in later life. Whether you are married, dating, or single, there is a fifth danger called the scarcity of time trap. As we get older, there is a natural awareness that we have less time ahead of us than behind us. This can trigger a frantic form of worry. We have to fix this relationship now, or I have to find someone before it's too late, or I can't waste time on the wrong person. This creates a pressure cooker environment. I see women dating in their 60s who treat every date like a job interview because they are worried about wasting time. This energy repels high-quality partners. A man, especially a man of substance and age, is looking for a sanctuary. He is looking for a woman who is at peace with herself. If you bring the energy of a ticking clock and a checklist of worries to a date, he will feel it as a demand, not an invitation. Conversely, if you are in a long-term marriage, this time scarcity worry can manifest as trying to force your husband to live his best life before it's too late. You might drag him to travel when he wants to rest, or critique his lifestyle because you are afraid of widowhood. This is not love, it is fear of loss. Jung teaches us that we must accept the cycle of life. By accepting mortality, we stop worrying about it. And ironically, we start living more fully. When you stop clutching at time, time expands. You enjoy the quiet coffee on the porch more than the frantic vacation you forced everyone to take. The concrete rule for this is, urgency is the enemy of intimacy. Slow down. Trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by, regardless of the timeline. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at the escalation of these patterns. If you do not address this addiction to worry, the consequences ripple out into your emotional legacy. This is the part that is painful to hear, but I must say it. I have seen families rupture not because of abuse or addiction, but because of the suffocating weight of a matriarch's anxiety. Adult children often distance themselves from a worrying mother to protect their own mental health. They may love you, but they cannot carry your fears. They will stop sharing the real details of their lives, their struggles, their dreams, because they know it will just trigger a panic attack in you. You end up with a surface relationship, talking only about the weather or sports, while the deep connection you crave withers away. Furthermore, this constant state of worry robs you of your identity. You become a reactor, not a creator. You spend your golden years reacting to potential threats rather than creating beautiful moments. Is this how you want to be remembered? As the woman who was always afraid? Or as the woman who was a pillar of calm, a source of wisdom, a woman who laughed easily and trusted deeply? So, how do we move to the healthy alternatives? How do we apply Jung's wisdom that everything starts to go well when we let go? The solution lies in a concept I call creative detachment. This is not indifference, it is not coldness, it is the ability to care deeply about a person or a situation while completely detaching from the outcome. It is saying to your adult child, I have faith in your ability to figure this out, and then actually letting them figure it out. It is saying to your partner, I love you, and I trust your journey, and then focusing on your own happiness. I want to share a success story. A client named Julia, 60, was a chronic worrier about her finances and her single status. She was constantly checking the stock market and constantly on dating apps, fueled by anxiety. We worked on creative detachment. She deleted the apps. She checked her portfolio only once a quarter. She started a garden. She joined a book club. She focused on expanding her own soul, which is the Jungian process of individuation. 6 months later, she met a man at that book club. Not because she was hunting, but because she was engaged in life. Her finances stabilized because she stopped making panic-driven moves. She told me, it feels like magic, but it's just physics. I stopped pushing so life could finally pull me in. This brings us to the concept of synchronicity. Jung believed that there is a meaningful connection between the inner and outer worlds. When your inner world is chaotic and fearful, you meet chaos and fear outside. When your inner world is settled, trusting, and open, you meet opportunities. You meet kindness. The everything that starts to go well isn't just luck, it is a reflection of your own settled spirit. You have spent decades building your life. You have raised children, built careers, navigated losses, and survived traumas. You have earned the right to trust yourself. The foundation is built. You do not need to hold the ceiling up anymore. It will hold itself up. Now, as I promised at the beginning, I want to give you a set of self-diagnostic questions. These are designed to pierce through the denial we often have about our own behavior. I want you to close your eyes for a moment if you can, or just soften your gaze and answer these honestly in the privacy of your own mind. Question 1. When the house is quiet and everyone is safe, do you feel a sudden urge to find something to fix or someone to check on? Does peace feel dangerous to you? Question 2. Do you secretly believe that if you stop worrying about a family member, they will fall apart? Do you think your worry is the only thing keeping them safe? Question 3. Do you mentally rehearse arguments or catastrophes that haven't happened yet, often spending hours in these imaginary scenarios? Question 4. When you are with your partner or your children, are you truly listening to them, or are you scanning their words for problems you need to solve? Question 5. If you were to take a week off from all your emotional management duties, no checking in, no reminding, no fixing, would you feel liberated or would you feel worthless? Question 6. Do you hide the extent of your anxiety from others because you know it is irrational, yet you cannot stop the loop in your head? Question 7. Is your body showing you signs, insomnia, jaw clenching, digestive issues, that you are carrying a burden that is too heavy? If you answered yes to even 2 or 3 of these questions, you are likely caught in the trap of the sentinel. You are operating from a place of fear, not power. And it is time to lay that burden down. There is no shame in this. It is a pattern born of love and responsibility, but it has outlived its usefulness. The invitation today is to step into a new way of being, a way where you trust the resilience of those you love, a way where you trust the wisdom of your own life. Remember, the goal is not to stop caring. The goal is to purify your care, to strip away the fear so that what remains is pure, unadulterated love and presence. That is the kind of woman who becomes a matriarch in the truest sense. a woman who anchors the family not with her grip, but with her calm. As Carl Jung said, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. You can choose, right now, to become the woman who lets go. And I promise you, when you do, you will be amazed at how everything, your health, your relationships, your spirit, starts to go well. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message resonated with you, please subscribe and share this with a woman who needs permission to put her burden down. Your emotional legacy is worth protecting.